Hey guys, this is Knight here. I wanted to warn everyone that this story is very graphic. Please, if you don't take well to graphic stories, turn away now. My friend has been on the other side of the deep web. At the last minute, he was rescued shortly before God knows what would happen. Here is his story. When I was 18, I worked night shift at a Subway. I worked until 11 p.m. and then would leave around 12 or 12:30 depending on how the night went. Most nights, around 10:58, a man would come in and want 2 cookies. I didn't mind. He was quick and always paid in cash, and then he was out the door. He never spoke, but he smelled terrible. He was about 5'11", a large man. His teeth were pretty nasty, but his fingers always set me off. They were long, almost curled, full of some sort of fungus and always dirty. He breathed heavily from the mouth, as if he were panting for the cookies he was getting. This night I was alone. The person that was typically with me every night wasn't, because our owner was doing a test run for a solo person at night. Basically, he only had to pay one person to work and could save money. What a greedy asshole. I was 5'4" and was about 110 pounds at the time. And yes, I am a man. I looked like I was 14 years old though, maybe younger. And I'm sure now that this guy thought for sure I was young enough to take. The night started off pretty normal. At 10:30, I started putting chairs up and sweeping and trying to get the dishes done. No one came in, so I felt like I was in the clear and started pulling the less desirable things off the line. Like clockwork, around 10:58, a car pulled up and the man walked out. He did something he had never done before. He walked all around the store. I felt pretty comfortable around him, so even though it was 11:01, I left the door unlocked and let him in. "Where's your buddy?" he asked, his voice like sandpaper to the ears. Have you ever talked with someone and it makes you want to clear your throat because you feel like they need to? Maybe it's just me. I looked at him odd. What a strange thing to say after one walks around the whole restaurant. "Oh, I'm flying solo tonight." He smiled, showing his disgusting yellow teeth, gums red like blood, a clear sign of severe gingivitis and lack of basic hygiene. I was starting to get honestly creeped out, so I tried to change the subject. "What cookies do you want today?" I asked. He stepped around to the back door. "Where are you going?" I yelled. Now I knew there was something wrong. I ran to the line and grabbed a bread cutting knife. I held it out to him as he made his way towards me. "No, you don't. You're coming with me." I held the knife in front of me, feeling helpless. This little ass knife wasn't going to do anything. Maybe cut him. I thought of what the hell I could do. I'm very analytical when it comes to these types of things. I'm the crazy person who actually plays out scenarios in my head, so if they happen, I know what to do. Like if I see someone get shot, I know rip off my undershirt and put pressure on the wound, then call 911. It's really about damage control in these situations. This time I thought, how do I not get killed, and how can I stay alive the longest so I can get help? As he got closer, he grabbed the knife and pulled it clear from my hands. I noticed then his hand was bleeding, but he didn't care. Then he grabbed me and picked me up, tossing me over his shoulder like a troll, and began walking out of the store. I searched frantically for something. He had a buddy with him in the car. He opened the trunk and tossed me in. A smell so horrid came from it and I nearly lurched. "Don't you move. If you get out, I'll know, and I'll back my car over your skull so many times, no one will recognize you." He shut the trunk and we began riding. I heard muffled talk from the front. I knew yelling was going to do nothing, and begging for my life is what he wanted. I checked my pockets and I realized I still had my phone. Whoever this guy was, he wasn't smart. I quickly called 911, and when the person answered, I whispered, "Track my GPS and find me. I'm being kidnapped." "Sir, please stay on the line while I send help," she replied back. "No, please keep quiet. I'm going to put my phone in my pocket. You have to find me before he sees I called 911. When we stop, I'm hanging up." I quickly shoved my phone in my pocket and waited. The muffled noise had stopped. All I could hear was the silence of the car. I tried to calm myself, not thinking about what was going to happen when we got home. That's when I heard someone swear, and the car began to pull off to the side. I didn't want to get my hopes up for it to be a police officer. I grabbed the phone and said, "Okay, time is up. Please, if you don't find me, tell my parents I love them." I hung up the phone and put it in my pocket. I waited, then heard arguing, but couldn't make out the words. Something about a warrant and how much someone owed another. I heard car doors open and shut. I was praying and crossing my fingers at this point, hoping to God that it was a police officer. I heard someone put keys in the trunk. Then it opened. Blue and red lights flooded the trunk. I saw the silhouette of a man, but I knew it was a police officer. He looked at me and smiled. "It's gonna be okay, you could come out." I got out feeling good inside. I was so excited to finally get out of that car. That's when he pulled out his gun and pointed at my back. "Let's go," he said. My face was pale. I was feeling so betrayed by the law. Somehow I knew this cop was real. He was running something underground and under the nose of the rest of the police department. He radioed in. "The kid's not in the trunk. He must have jumped out or something. We have the suspects, but there's no reason for arrest. I'm gonna let him go." My blood went cold. What was happening? I saw the two men in the car, and they were counting out money. The cop put me in handcuffs and he searched me. Finding my phone, he smiled and dropped it on the ground. "Whoops." He laughed and whipped out his gun to shoot at once. "Butterfingers." He laughed manically. I swallowed hard, and then with quick thought started to chuckle too, trying to show I wasn't scared, though I was. I was shaking from fear, and my left eye was twitching. "Shut up," he yelled, pistol whipping me. His face got so serious and he shoved me toward the car, opening the back door and pushing me in. My foot barely in. He slammed the door shut, almost breaking my foot, had I not moved it quickly. Then the cop sped off, and I watched the men smile and wave at me as I went. I knew to be quiet. The cop, or whatever he was, kept looking at me through the mirror, making sure I wasn't trying anything stupid. I didn't know what was going to happen to me, but I knew that whatever it wasn't going to be good. I had about 47 hours probably now. I began to think what might happen to me. One option was sex slavery. I could be sold on the black market as a slave to some crazy lunatic. I could be featured on a live stream where someone cuts me open or drowns me. I could be sold for experimentation. If I was lucky, maybe they would give me a gun and want me to blow my brains out in front of a stream. All I knew was that where I was headed wasn't good. I decided at this point the best possible thing to do is stay quiet and do whatever he said. He kept driving for about an hour to somewhere completely and totally remote as he stopped the car. He pulled me out, shoved me along as we went. In front of me was a small cabin. I was getting more and more terrified. What do you do when you're in these situations? There were trees all around me. I could run, but how far would I really get? We got onto the porch and he looked over at me. Immediately I looked down. "You're a real good boy, aren't you?" He searched for the right keys and stopped staring at me. Then he flinched forward to scare me. He did. I jumped and fell on my ass. He laughed so hard it was annoying. He opened the door and shoved me in. At least it didn't smell. I'd give him that. He then opened a trap door to the basement and I looked down. He shoved me down. I hit my head against the concrete wall, scraping it and bleeding a little from my face. I couldn't tell, but I felt it stinging. I started to wonder, was I stupid? Should I have fought harder? Should I have opened the trunk and risked running away? I was still in handcuffs, and I'm terrified of spiders. But I didn't know what else to do. I had to piss. I was sleepy now and oddly starving. I managed to get my pants down and took a leak, but had a harder time pulling them back up. When I managed it, I sat against the wall and waited. My thoughts began to race as I wondered what would happen. By now, the police had alerted my parents. If the police department was in on it, then I was screwed. If it was just the one guy who was corrupt, I had a chance. I vowed to myself that I would try to stall and waste time up until the end. I was about to enter a world that was going to be horrible for me. I was about to be tortured and beaten and probably killed. I made a rule for myself. Number 1, don't pass out from pain. Number 2, don't talk unless you have the opportunity to stall. Number 3, don't scream unless there's no option. Number 4, don't fight the torture. Number 5, stay alive as long as possible. I knew number 5 was the scariest rule. If someone tried to shoot me, I would need to ask them to kill me some other way, more sadistic. Like a knife slowly cutting me up. I closed my eyes and tried to think of happier things, but I couldn't. I must have fallen asleep, because I woke up to a blinding light and feeling sore. A voice said, "Here he is. He's young. I looked at his license. He's 19 years old. But look at him. He'd be perfect. Bring him up here. Does he scream?" My eyes began to adjust to the light of the new day. I saw 2 men up in the cabin. One was bigger than the other. Both were tall. The first man who spoke was American, it seemed. The second had to be Russian. I tried to make out what their faces were, but then I was ripped up by my handcuffs by the first man. Neither one was the cop from last night. My hands really hurt the way he pulled on them. I found my footing on the ladder and began to walk up as I was led by my captor. I got a full view of the men holding me. The first had brown hair and a creepy mustache, one that someone from the 1800s would wear. It was curled on each side. He kept himself looking pretty well-to-do. Meanwhile, the other guy was not so well kept. He had a scar across his face and he looked to be in his 40s. He kept his hair short to hide his balding head. His clothes were pretty dirty. It looked like he hadn't bathed much either, but his cologne masked whatever smell he had. As you can see, he's well-mannered, as far as we experienced. I think he might be retarded, but he'll work all the same. Was he serious? Just because I was quiet didn't mean I was retarded. But I kept my cool. "Do you speak?" the Russian man said, almost yelling. He grabbed me by the chin and pulled my eyes to him. "Yes," I said, and found my voice to be very faint. I must have breathed too much dust overnight. I coughed a bit. "Good." He pulled out a knife, holding my face. He gave a slight cut, nothing too deep. He just wanted me to scream. I did like an idiot. "He screams like a stuck pig. Perfect, he will do fine." Both roared with laughter as they took enjoyment from my suffering. Great. Looks like I was in for a real good time. They discussed payment in Russian. I'm not sure why they didn't want me to know. Maybe they thought I'd take it personally or something. I waited for them to be done. They shook hands and the Russian guy took me with the keys to my cuffs and he walked to his van. By this time I had blood all down my face staining my clothes, and my face hurt. From one sadistic man to another. I hoped maybe this guy would keep me for a bit, so I could maybe work on him. He put something over my face and we drove off. I was starving and I hurt so bad all over. The ride was harsh, and the white van we were in had almost no suspension. Every bump sent me sliding or falling over. I hoped we would be at the stop soon. I know this sounded so stupid, but I kept having the song Dance with the Devil in my head by Immortal Technique. I took the chance and started rapping it out loud so he could hear it. After a few minutes, he stopped the car off the side of the road. When I stopped, I realized how bad my decision was. I must have looked like a total idiot. Maybe I was retarded. I don't think I really knew what the heck I was doing. I was just trying to stay alive and stall as long as I could. I guess it was working. The door whipped open so hard that the whole car shook. "What is that? What are you singing?" He pointed at me. I thought he was mad. I figured, screw it. What have I got to lose? I'll play around with him. My life, before you thugs took me in, I was a gangster, sold crack all across every street. I was gonna join a gang until this happened to me. There was silence. Then he burst out laughing. I saw tears run down his face and he fell to the ground. You, he coughed, selling drugs? I thought he was going to die from laughter right there. Then he quieted down. Look at you. How much you weigh? 50? 60 pounds? He closed the door and I could hear him burst into laughter again as he got back into the van and began driving. I felt hope drain from me. I was hoping if he thought I was some gangster, maybe he'd find a connection. He finally stopped at the right place. It was a warehouse. He took me out and made me walk beside him. I figured I'd chance it and said, "So what is going to happen? How are you going to kill me?" I wasn't going to pretend like I was going to make it out alive. You don't want to know, but don't worry, you'll pass out from the pain and won't know what happens next. Then like a little dove, you'll go to heaven. I thought it was strange. He was poetic. Before I die, can I ask you 3 questions of anything? I said. I saw him give it real consideration, then nodded and said, 2. Because this counts as 1, but only because I like the little man who thinks he could sell crack. Good. I gained respect from him. I thought of these 2 questions as we got closer to the warehouse. The ground crunched below me as we walked. There was gravel everywhere. I tried to think of where I might be, and if I was at a known location where I might be found. Then I thought back to the question. I've never done drugs. Can I do a line or a hit of something before I die? He paused for a second. We were at the door. He opened it and said, "Sure, why not? You'll be funny on crack." Score. We got into the warehouse and then I asked him, "Why do you do this?" He brought me to the post and opened the handcuffs just to handcuff me to the post. He looked at me for a second and said, "Why don't you do this? I'm the lion. I'm the shark. You are the gazelle and the fish." I wasn't sure what to say, but I thought I'd try another. "But why?" He pointed his finger at me and I flinched. He chuckled and said, "2 questions, that's all you got, sneaky bastard." I sighed and watched him walk away. Now what? I guess I had to wait again. I went over my rules again. I tried thinking of escaping, but I realized that was impossible. I made a new rule. Number 6, don't escape. This was my game. If I could live through it all, then I could tell my story. Dying was a losing game, but the police had to find me in order for me to win. I couldn't run away on my own, obviously, because I knew I would die. I was past the point of no return. I sat there for a good while. Then sometime in the afternoon, the Russian guy returned and set down a plate with some mashed potatoes. On it, inside was maggots. Oh, Jesus. I feel bad for you. Usually we give people grubs or something. You, though, I like you. You get a potato to go with your grubs. Eat it so I don't have to hit you. He unlocked one of the hands and gave me a spoon. Honestly, though, I was starving. I grabbed the spoon and dug into it and ate as fast as I can. I choked not on the grubs, but the lack of water. The Russian laughed at me and slapped me on the back. "I'm almost sorry we have to kill you," he said. I finished my meal and looked at him. "Can I tell you about my game?" He looked at me strange. "Sure," he said, sitting down on a chair. He looked almost too big for it. I explained it to him, all of it. He smirked at me and began sizing me up as if my game was his challenge. "So my game now is to make you beg me to kill you. I like this." He stood up and pointed at me. "You're going to make me a lot of money tonight. I'll be back with the dust." He walked to a back room somewhere. I knew it was all going to end soon. My time was almost up, and within a few hours I'd probably be in an intense pain. He came back with cameras and all sorts of equipment. There were 3 others with him. They had tools with them. This is what I saw. 8 large bags with knives and sharp tools inside. A toolbox with flathead screwdriver and drills. A cheese grater. A battery and some jumping cables. Finally a metal poker that I assumed they would use to burn me with. Sure enough, they fired up a metal barrel and stuck the poker inside to get hot. The smoke bellowed out a window and slowly drifted into the air. Thank God, maybe it would alert someone. They started joking and laughing in Russian. They pointed at me a couple times, and the guy I knew kept looking at me with a strange look. I'm not sure if he felt sorry, or if he was just making sure I wasn't going to escape. When they finished setting up, they all put down lines of cocaine. He unlocked the cuffs from the pole and brought me to the table. I wasn't sure how to do it. I looked at them as I kneeled over it. There was a pause of silence. I leaned down and plugged my nose and breathed in as hard as I could. It burned. I coughed and looked at them as tears welled up in my eyes. They broke out into a roar of laughter, and the Russian I was talked to slapped me hard on the back. I choked a bit and didn't feel anything. "Where's the rush?" I asked, looking at them. They kept laughing. The big guy rushed me over to the pole and cuffed me back up. That's when I started to feel it. Immediately, I started to become paranoid. I screamed for them to let me out, and I wanted to go home. Annoyed that I wasn't having a good trip, the Russian guy picked up a fire extinguisher and smashed me upside the head with it. I passed right out. What they were going to do next literally changed my life. I wish I hadn't asked to be drugged, because maybe I could have used the valuable time when they were setting things up to try and escape. Why the hell did I create these rules? What good was going along with this shit? My what to do if I was kidnapped plan was really retarded. I woke up to a blinding light on me. I threw up on the ground. I saw a little red light showing the camera was on, and I heard over a microphone the Russian speak. "Ladies and gentlemen, this evening we'll have a very special guest. He's finally awake. We can now begin." I looked in front of me to see a large TV screen. It had a chat log, and I knew what it was from. I started reading all the things they wanted to be done to me. One wanted me to be punctured with a drill. Another wanted my legs to be ribboned with a knife. I saw one man with a mask on come close with a drill. I knew what was about to happen. Rule 4 came into my mind as he tore my clothes off, leaving me naked. He bent me over and turned me around and inserted the drill, and I winced. Then it went. The pain was so intense. It burned. I gripped my thumbs in my fist and I tried to bear it. Finally, I screamed in pain so loud, eyes filling with tears. I felt the flesh inside of me tear, but soon easy as my muscles were now gone. I began to wonder if I would live through this. He pulled out the drill eventually. By the end, it didn't hurt as bad for some reason, but blood was pouring down my leg. I couldn't focus with my eyes. I tried to, and finally when I did, I saw a different masked man come in with a cheese grater and began slowly moving it back and forth over my knees. The pain from the drill was so much worse than the pain I was feeling here, but I still groaned in pain. Mostly I was shocked watching the skin peel away, then it moved down to the bone quickly. He did one, then the other. I could no longer make out what the chat log wanted. I was feeling faint from the blood loss. They came out with the car battery and broke it open. They poured the liquid acid right on my knees, and then the pain, oh God, it began to eat through my bones I broke. I screamed to get it off. I fought against the chains. I yelled it to the Russian guy to just kill me. My rules were simple, but never would have worked. They came in with the garden cutters. They grabbed my hands and put it over my thumb. They were dull. He kept pressing. I screamed so loud, "Kill me, kill me." The cutters broke through the skin and began to slowly move through the bone. The other man came in with a flat head. He began prying off my fingernails. Pain was so horrifying. I heard my bones snap in my thumb, and finally the cutters went through and my thumb was off. I screamed. Then I heard something that honestly could have been an angel. "Get on the ground now!" Then a flashbang. Smoke filled the room. A flashlight moved around the room. It was the police. There were bangs, and finally I passed out. I'm not sure if I had one. I don't know, honestly. I woke up in a hospital bed. My parents were sitting around me. We hugged and talked about things. Then a police officer showed up and gave a statement. I asked them how he found me. They said my 911 call saved my life. The officer on duty thought he would just squash the 911 call by saying I wasn't there. The 911 operator, though, told the police that I hadn't talked about running. And when the officer stopped the car, it was when I hung up. That not only prompted an arrest of the officer, but an investigation to where I had been. The cop spilled everything, not wanting to be the cop that went to prison. Too bad, he's still going. They got to the cabin shortly after I was sold. By this time, the FBI was involved. One unit began looking for an abandoned warehouse near the area, a place where I might have been taken. They also had cars near it. Another unit began looking on the darknet for live streams with someone of my description in it. Together, they were able to track me down. I was relieved to say the least. The doctor told me that things would heal. I've got no thumb or pointer finger on my left. I'll let you use your imagination about downstairs how things are. Thankfully I can still function, and after pressing charges, I've gotten a good sum of money to live out my life without working a job. And screw you if you don't think I deserve it. People are messed up in the head. These guys weren't just killing me. They had killed many others. I'm glad they're off the streets now. My advice to anyone would be to fight it. It's not worth getting tortured just to be saved. I'm glad I'm alive right now, but if I could have gone back, I would have stabbed that asshole or jumped over the counter and ran. I would have opened the trunk and jumped out. I would have ran from the cop. I would have ran from the Russian guy. Anything to get me away. At least now I can breathe easy, but it saddens me to think that I'm not the only one. This is happening to someone right now, and they won't be saved. Tonight on the dark web, someone will be killed on camera. Some guy like me. But there will be no flashbangs, no police to save him. I just pray for these souls that they all die quickly. If you want to see more scary stories like this one, please subscribe to my channel.